In this tips and tricks lesson, we will be looking at how to query and edit Maya's animation time range, as well as the playback time range inside of a Python script. As a quick overview, the animation start and end times can be changed through the GUI interface by altering the values of the start time. Here I can set this to 10 for the start time and 96 for the end time. And then there's also the playback range. This is the range that's affected by the time slider. And again, I can change the start and end times of this playback range by simply altering the values inside of the user interface. So here I'll set my playback range to 15, and I'll set my end playback range to 36. And I can also use the slider in the middle to adjust this range as well. Just setting everything back to the defaults before we jump into the code. So now my animation time range starts on 1 and ends on frame 48, but my playback range, while starting on frame 1, only goes to frame 24. Now to alter this inside of Python code, we will be using the Maya Playback Options command. So I've already set up the code to query the animation as well as the playback start and end times. And if I just execute each of these lines, you can see that my animation start time is 1, my animation end time is 48, and then my playback start time is 1, and my playback end time is only 24. So there is a distinction between the two. Now if I open up my quick help, you can see all of the flags available when using the Playback Options command, but the only ones we care about for this lesson are the animation start time flag, as well as the animation end time, and then the min time and the max time. So the min time and max time flags relate to the playback time range, and it's important to be aware of the differences between min time, max time, as well as the animation start time and end time. Now to query these values, we simply set the query flag to true, and then we pass in the flag for the value that we want returned by this command. That's it. It's no different than any other query for any other command. Now to edit the start and end times, all I need to do is change my query flag to an edit flag, and then set the new value. So here I'm going to set the animation start time to 10. When I execute this line of code, you'll see that my result is 10. And if I look back at my user interface, I can see that my start time, my animation start time, has been updated to 10. You'll also notice that my playback start time has been set to 10 as well. And that's because the playback start time cannot be less than the animation start time. Likewise, the playback end time cannot be greater than the animation end time. And Maya, under the hood, will alter these values as necessary. So if I was to try to change my animation end time to, let's make it 20, you can see that the playback end time has been adjusted so that it is not greater than the animation end time. And this goes for mel commands as well. So jumping back into code, if I was to change my animation start time to 1, and looking at the user interface, my animation start time is now set to 1. However, my playback animation time hasn't been affected. Now similarly, with the animation end time, I can change this to an edit command. And now I'll set my animation end time to 96. When I execute this and look back at my user interface, the animation end time is now 96. Looking at the playback time range, I'll change my query flags to edit. And now I'll set my min time to 1, as well as my max time to 96. When I execute these two lines of code, inside my user interface, the playback start time and playback end time now match the animation start time as well as the animation end time. One final thing to be aware of is that if you set the playback start time to something less than the animation start time, or the playback end time to something greater than the animation end time, then Maya will automatically set the animation time to match the playback time. So here I'll set my playback end time to frame 200, and when I execute this, I'll see that my result is 200, and looking back at the user interface now, my playback time has been set to 200, but also my animation end time has been set to 200. And once again, this is so the playback time is not greater than the animation time.